Okay, I think the audio is clear, so I'll directly start because. And we need to keep one thing in mind that I want to make it like I want to limit the length of this. I have this tendency to start to over explain stuff. So let's ensure that one thing is in clear. I'll set this focus session and what we are trying to aim. The aim is to ensure that we don't go beyond this or whatever 10 minutes. Yeah, don't cover my face, please. Okay, let's keep it here. But I think the moment I'll click on canvas, okay, it stays inside. I'm just taking too much time to adjust. Okay, let me just arrange it properly. See, this clearly shows that I didn't prepare for this, which is not a good thing, to be honest, like, which is not something to flex. But okay, now I have got only 9 minutes. In 9 minutes, whatever I think you've already seen what is written over here. So in 9 minutes, what I'm going to do, I'm going to convince, like, whatever is stated here, what exactly or how exactly does it work. So it's not like I just said yes, can you see future, and it just became an absolute reality. I'm going to give proper reasoning and logic, and if you happen to be somebody who believes that the ability to see future or that is something, either it is pseudoscientific or it's just impossible, it's something you can only expect in sci-fi movies and stuff like that, just be with me for if you survive next 9 minutes. Now we have only 9 minutes left, so if you survive the next 9 minutes, I can assure you that you will be in a position to clearly grasp how it is possible to really see future. And I'm not bullshitting. There is no, I'm not going to prank you at the end. Nothing like that is going to happen. Plus, just for 8 minutes now. Okay. So before we understand, like, the future, let's talk about like the time itself, because we have to understand a few concepts which are really crucial and indispensable to understand how the future or how the ability this whole thing works. There are two things here: the concept of time itself and the perception of time. As humans, how do we perceive time? So see here, like, we have one thing is the concept of time. This dopamine message just me from a different PC. I don't think somebody else is feeling this entire research or explanation. It's just me on, okay, I can move it right away. So that's just me on MacBook. So now back to the discussion. See, this is how I derail the contours. It's really unnecessary. Okay, so we have this concept of time and we have time perception. Okay. Why? What's the difference? So there's an objectively, like, we have an absolute time, absolute concept of time in physics, like how things progress. It is based on, I think, the concept of entropy. I'll later cross check this part. So the concept of entropy in many ways helps in understanding how there is only one unidirectional flow in which things move. That is one aspect. But how we humans as individuals experience time, that is based or that is represented by the concept of time perception, because the way your brain actually experiences time, that part is different, and we need to keep this in mind that whatever experience happens, it happens inside the brain. So if there is something that, for example, that is happening outside of the brain, like something that is happening outside of the capacity of the brain to experience, that thing is practically useless to discuss, because whatever or in whichever way that thing happens, the brain just won't realize it, the brain just won't understand it, the brain just won't be aware of any of that. So have to keep in mind that when we talk about time or any such thing or any experience, it has to be within the scope and constraints of the human mind, right? So that is what is represented by time perception. How does the brain perceive time? I think I'm already running short now. 6 minutes are left. Okay, so मैंने इस पे थोड़ा सा research किया था, and this is what a lot of research was there. Okay, so why did I do this much? Okay, I'm not going to. Okay, yeah, let's start from this part. Okay, there I think I can start. Okay, so think about it like this: how do we experience time, or the experience of time in brain as thoughts? if you imagine your brain to be like an absolute blank container, we experience content in the form of thoughts. Where does this content come from? It comes from primarily two places, either from the environment or from the senses, how the brain takes in the content and data and tries to process it in real time. So that is one like area where the content comes from. Second is the existing content that the brain is ruminating. The brain is trying to connect or relate with this moment or something random that came up to you suddenly and you started thinking about it. So either the content that your mind experiences at any given moment, it can either come from the environment via senses, or it can come from your memory, something that you have already experienced and brain is just sort of reprocessing it, right? So we can actually say that the overall experience of mind is limited either to environment or to the existing memory or the existing content it is aware of. Now, how does it experience that? The overall experience happens in the form of thoughts. Now, as like about time perception, thoughts seem to come in clusters. Between two thoughts, there can be absolutely nothing. You can be in a thoughtless state. So your brain experiences time via thoughts. How? Thoughts either come and go. They have a certain order. Brain remembers the order. Brain doesn't directly sense time, like it doesn't recall time the way you think like it happens on clock. It doesn't track like it doesn't direct. Okay, I'm getting too confused in this part to how to explain this thing. See, thoughts like see, there's a flow of thoughts, right? Your brain knows that one thought was there some time back. Afterwards, four thoughts have passed. So that's how it is keeping a track of time. If you remove all those thoughts, if in absolute vacuum, if we talk about, it will be very difficult for the brain to sense time. So the thoughts are very indispensable for direct time perception. But why is it important for this discussion and how does it relate to this? So okay, okay. God shit, like तुम लोगों में ना the problem is not the concept itself. The problem is to explain everything to you. Okay, so there is one aspect of the brain. Let's talk about this one thing. It's important because we just have 3 minutes left. Your when those thoughts are flowing, you can also simultaneously see them from a distance. This ability is something. It's a higher order cognitive process, and it's called metacognition. So basically, you can see the flow of thought or the stream of thoughts from a distance. That is metacognition. When you can also train this aspect. This is something. This is like a muscle which can be trained. But the important aspect to keep in mind is that when you have to train this muscle, you need to. There's another thing like okay. There is another thing called working memory. So working memory basically represents the space where the entire this whole processing is happening. When you're seeing that stream of thoughts, you're not seeing the entire chain, right? You're seeing a part and a certain fragment of it, right? So the whatever focus or whatever is the focal range, where like and from the very immediate thing that you're focusing upon to the entire range of it, whatever limited fragment that you're seeing of the chain, that is being all of that is being processed in working memory. Now, working memory is actually related to metacognition. How? The less working memory load is there, the more you are free to focus on improving metacognition, which means the less stress or less load is there on working memory. It frees up your cognitive resources, meaning it makes you it makes things easier for you and for the metacognition to take place. When you don't have to take the active burden of being in charge of what thoughts or what problem you have to simultaneously think, if you have to basically not think about everything, what to say, what to process, if like right now that as you can see I'm struggling, if I were to automate this, if I were to practice this enough, at some point I could just let this process happen by itself and I could just watch from distance. So if you understood this much, you're running so short on time. If you practice something enough and it becomes automated or it becomes a habit, you can watch it from a distance, right? So this is less working memory load is directly proportional to higher metacognition. Why metacognition is important? Because metacognition, when you train it, at certain point it not only starts to see what you're seeing in that moment, or what you're processing in that moment, it also can simultaneously anticipate the thought that you're about to that is about to become a part of this chain. So the thought which is a part of this chain already, but it is about to become active in your direct range. So not 20 seconds, I have to just sum it up. Metacognition can anticipate the thoughts, the future thoughts, right now, sitting in present. So the thought at t is equal to 10 second, for example, the metacognition can sense it right now at t is equal to 0. So in a way, it can see future. It can see the thoughts of future. I mean, I'm sorry, I had to wrap it up like this. It can basically, okay, just one more minute cheating करें एक मिनट मेरा एक्चुअल लग गया था. It can, sitting at t is equal to 0, it can anticipate the thought that will become, that is right now, that is not properly germinated, but it is going to become a part of this active process, sitting at t is equal to 0, which means your entire process is happening, your entire thoughts are flowing, you're not touching them, you're separately witnessing everything. Simultaneously, you're not just witnessing what is being cooked in your mind at that moment. You can also, with practice, with deliberate practice, you can start to see what is about to become a part of this active process. So when you already know what is going to be there, like 10 seconds from now, effectively we can call it seeing the future. What exactly seeing the future? Because as we see, one thing is that we only can, as I'm already established previously, that we only experience what is happening inside the mind. So effectively, when I say, if I can sense what my mental state would be, let's say 10 seconds from now, that can be effectively called as seeing the future, because I'm seeing the state that this mind will be 10 seconds from now. Right now it is in a different state. What it will be in 10 seconds, what it will be in 60 seconds from now, if I can simulate and sense and figure it out right now, right itself, without touching the process or interfering with the process, I'm effectively seeing the future, right? I, I think, see, the ones who are smart, the ones who are smart enough, they would probably grasp, like, I just got short on time. I can probably try explaining it in a longer video. Might take over 30 minutes, I guess, if I don't derail, if I don't try to create unnecessary jokes or stuff. I didn't practice much. I just was thinking about how to incorporate all of this in a single video. See, the actual struggle is not that I don't understand all these things myself. The actual struggle is in when, as you know, Richard Feynman said that you better start to explain something to a child, and then you realize that how much inconsistency there is between your mind and the other mind. Now, when I start to think about how to explain it to people, I then actually encounter all these. I stumble upon all these roadblocks, because now there's an added work that I have to do, which is to explain the details and the context, right? So enough of flexing, but yeah, I just lost this challenge. I'm going to create another video. That one is probably going to be more structured, and I'm going to really, like, we're going to talk about a few more things. Like, actually, verbal fluency was supposed to be the hero in the entire story, the protagonist. Unfortunately, it did not get its time because metacognition had to be explained, which was important. We are going to start from verbal fluency and build up all the way up, addressing every component of this whole process, and then we'll come to metacognition. That was exactly like that's what I planned, but unfortunately. And we're going to be talking about a lot of other things, like we're going to talk about attention, peripheral awareness. We're going to talk about focal range. What does it mean as a whole? We're going to also go deeper into verbal fluency, because right now you might assume or think it's probably something like, it's like maybe learning new words, or just being somebody, like just being a better speaker or better orator, like that. It is much deeper than that. What is it? What does it actually reflect? What other traits? It's like it's a high level cognitive trait by the task. Uh, Abhi, I'll get into all of that later. Abhi, right now, don't put me in the burden. You already make me do this challenge. Again, so this much for now. I will be creating another session, the longer session, and that one is going to be, like, jokes aside, that one is going to be more structured. And I'll try to see what all aspects I can try to incorporate in a way that is graspable for everybody or anybody who watches this. And I don't get to blame it on others instead of myself. So yeah, enough for this. Like, I'll just end this video. I don't know what, I don't give an outro or something. It's not a YouTube video. I just don't know how to. Where's the closing button? I'm just not finding it. Okay. Okay then.